Chapter 4-6. A double-edged red mark appeared on Shirou's right palm. In the same instant, the magic circle beneath him begins to radiate a faint, reddish light, and a powerful wind sweeps away the debris surrounding it, forcing Ryunosuke to take a few steps back in surprise. Wow, what is this? Is the demon lord coming? Ryunosuke's eyes sparkled with childlike fascination as he stared at the magic circle and the strong wind. The girl at the center of the formation, sensing the abnormal change, cried out in fear and instinctively moved closer to Shirou. However, Shirou, in his poor state, was unaware of this. In the land of Fuyuki City, a magic ceremony known as the Holy Grail War is about to take place. The Holy Grail is a wish-granting machine, and in addition to the 3 families that originally established the ceremony system and the clock tower that accepted it, other participants must have strong wishes to be selected by the Holy Grail. Shirou's fierce desire for survival had previously been recognized by the Holy Grail, granting him the participants' proof of the seals, the double-edged red sword-like mark on his right palm. Ryunosuke learned from magical books that the ceremony to summon a servant involves using a spell drawn with fresh blood and chanted aloud. Now, the participants, the magic circle, and the spell are all in place, and the Holy Grail War ceremony has begun. However, there is a problem with this ceremony. The Holy Grail War is a conflict for magicians, so naturally, the participants are all magicians. After all, how could they possibly summon and control a servant without the necessary basic magic power? But Shirou is just an ordinary elementary school student, even though his body possesses 27 magic circuits. He is still just a 6-year-old elementary school student who hasn't yet awakened his magical potential. Yet, he has still managed to establish a connection with the Holy Grail. As a result, the powerful magic of the Holy Grail ceremony has directly overwhelmed his magic circuits and forced his body's hidden magic circuits to start connecting with the summoned servant. It hurts. It hurts, Shirou muttered, his nerves feeling like they were on fire, the pain indescribable. In addition, the magic circuits being forced to open and connect with a summoned servant caused a huge influx of magic power at the initial contact, making Shirou see an illusion. Sword. No matter where he looked, all he saw was swords. Divine swords, holy swords, demon swords, cursed swords, blessed swords, legendary swords. All these swords are stranded in a dark and seemingly hopeless world, like a sword graveyard. Ryusuke, you actually summoned me. A male voice, sounding rather unhappy and rude, spoke in Shirou's ear. The miracle known as the Holy Grail, if it is summoned by you, the command seals on your hand cannot fulfill my wish. Most importantly, if I have to take orders from you, I'd rather die, the summoned servant declared, shattering his spiritual foundation, Saint Graph, and returning to the outside of the timeline and world line. However, his remaining spirit foundation was not destroyed, but instead absorbed and integrated into Shirou due to the origin awakening Shirou underwent. The summoned servant is Shirou. Well, more accurately, it is the second-generation hero of justice who was not taken over by a stranger soul, survived the Fuyuki fire, lost both parents, and changed his name. Heroic spirit Amiya Shirou. Shirou's young body cannot bear the burden of the Saint Graph of a servant, which is difficult to bear even for those of the same source. His whole body feels hot like he was being roasted, and some marks similar to Amiya's are etched on his body. The surging power begins to rampage, and with a crack sound, the pure force tears apart the thick ropes wrapped around Shirou's body. What's going on? Where's the demon lord? What's wrong with you? How can a child possess such immense power? Ryunosuke exclaims in shock. Shirou's piercing stare seems to bore into Ryunosuke's soul, causing his heart to skip a beat under the intensity of the young boy's gaze. The surging energy coursing through Shirou's veins leaves his head spinning and his body begging for rest. But he knows he cannot succumb to fatigue, not while Ryunosuke remains a threat and the innocent girl at the center of the magic circle is at risk of losing her life. He fights off the fatigue, determined to protect both himself and the girl from harm. Despite the excruciating pain in his head, Shirou gritted his teeth and summoned the knowledge of the projection magic principle stored within his Saint Graph. With a swift flick of his hand, a shimmering sword materialized and shot through the air towards Ryunosuke, its cold momentum slicing through the space between them. However, Shirou's aim was thrown off by the throbbing pain in his head, and the sword only narrowly missed its intended target, piercing Ryunosuke's chest instead. A fountain of fresh blood gushes forth, clouding the air with a red mist. Despite the excruciating injuries he has sustained, Ryunosuke remains eerily calm, showing no signs of agony or fear. It's almost as if he is immune to pain, a disturbing revelation considering his profession as a killer. But even without the ability to feel physical pain, Ryunosuke is not completely oblivious to danger. He seems to sense that something has gone awry and makes a desperate bid for escape. Shirou aches to pursue Ryunosuke and put an end to the madman's reign of terror, but the strain of merging his spiritual foundation with such overwhelming power has left his mind and body on the verge of collapse. Despite his best efforts to stay conscious, he eventually succumbs to the exhaustion and slips into a coma. Woo woo. The girl sobs uncontrollably as her body is racked with fear. Soon the police arrive. Shinto Police Station. We apologize for this unfortunate incident. It is a result of our police force's dereliction of duty. The child may experience strong emotions and will need the support and care of their parents. We don't want to hear apologies. What about the perpetrator? Have they been caught? I'm sorry, ma'am. We were unable to apprehend the suspect. But rest assured, we are doing everything in our power to track them down and bring them to justice, the police officer explains, trying to reassure the Fujimaru couple. When the couple returned home, Sakura was there waiting for them. She had a strong bond with Shirou. In the past few days, he had told her stories and had been very kind and gentle towards her, just like a sister. So now, seeing him unconscious, she was very worried. Mr. Fujimaru hesitated, not knowing how to answer. This kid collapsed after running a race and experiencing physical exhaustion. Mrs. Fujimaru smoothly covered up the truth. Sakura said nothing, watching Shirou's pain-filled face as he lay on the bed. She went to the bathroom and grabbed a cold towel, then climbed onto the bed to help wipe the sweat off Shirou's face. It hurts. It hurts, Shirou muttered in his sleep, his face contorted in pain. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. Sakura is here. Brother doesn't have to hurt. Be good, brother. Sakura gently touched Shirou's forehead. The Fujimaru couple watched this scene from outside the room and quietly closed the door. I really like this girl. She will make a great wife in the future, Mrs. Fujimaru said. Yes. I wonder which family she belongs to, and how could they be so heartless as to abandon her? Mr. Fujimaru asked. I don't know. What does it matter? Those trashy parents are not worth mentioning. In the future, she will be my daughter and I will dote on her, Mrs. Fujimaru said. Mr. Fujimaru nodded with a smile. Narita, do you think this incident will cause Shirou to suffer from psychological damage? Mrs. Fujimaru asked worriedly after a moment of silence. Sigh. Don't say that. I'll ask the school for a long holiday. I'll talk to the president and see if I can take some time off to take him out and relax. I don't want to cause any psychological problems. Will the company allow you to take time off at a time like this? If they don't approve it, I'll quit. I can find another job, but I only have one child. I don't want Shirou to be like us, never experiencing the love of parents. Such a life is incomplete, Mr. Fujimaru said. Shirou's eyebrows unconsciously tightened as he slowly opened his eyes. His consciousness had not fully returned yet, as if the pain in his brain from overuse was still present. He felt a moist breath on his face and a soft, warm presence next to him. Slightly turning his head, Shirou saw Sakura lying next to him on the pillow, sleeping peacefully. With each breath, the warm air gently exhaled onto his face, like a cat's claws scratching an itch. Shirou's throat was a little dry, so he slightly moved to try to get up and pour a glass of water. However, this slight movement woke the girl next to him, who let out a soft mumble. Brother, you're awake, the girl says, rubbing her sleepy eyes and speaking in a soft voice. Sorry, did I wake you? Shirou apologizes, his tired smile belying his still weak body. I was just trying to get some water and I guess I woke you up by accident. I'm sorry. Let me do it for you. No, it's okay. Just a small thing. I can do it myself. Shirou smiles and tries to sit up, determined to take care of himself despite his weakness. But to Shirou's surprise, Sakura pushed him back and said seriously, Brother is a patient. You should lie down. Saying that, she ran out of the room and went downstairs to get water. Shirou didn't know what to say. He could only sigh that having a sister is really nice, especially one who is so considerate. But reason told Shirou that this is only temporary. Sakura had run away from home and the Tosaka and Matu families will definitely find her. Shirou shook his head, not wanting to think about these complicated things. But even if he didn't want to think about them, these complicated things would come to him anyway. Slightly lifting his hand, Shirou looked at the red marks on his palm, or rather, the cursed magical creations called command seals. A bitter expression appeared on his face. He had wanted to avoid the Fourth Holy Grail War but ended up becoming a participant in it. And he even summoned the original owner who wanted to kill him. As a result, when the servant saw that it was his young self who did the summoning, he decisively committed suicide, ultimately causing part of him to merge with his spiritual core and become a subservient like Mashu, as well as a part-time master. Isn't this pushing him to a dead end? As both a master and a servant, even if he wants to withdraw from the Fourth Holy Grail War, he can't. The only way to withdraw from the Holy Grail War is for either the servant to perish or the master to perish. And now he is both a servant and a master. How can he withdraw? Use his head to withdraw. Is the outcome going to be that he either scrapes by and wins or gets crushed to death? My luck. It's really not good. Why is it so bad? He wanted to avoid the Fourth Holy Grail War and the mysteries, but in the end, he has become tied to the Holy Grail War in a relationship where either he dies or the other person dies. How unlucky. It's like carrying water with a bamboo basket, tears coming before words can be spoken. What is this? Suddenly, Shirou was surprised by the sight in front of him. In front of him was a frame like the system frame described in novels. Well, it should not be called a system frame, but rather a magic brought by the Holy Grail, which analyzed the body's condition and formed data that could be recognized by the brain. Fujimaru Shirou. Type: Demi-servant. Class: Caster. Strength: E. Endurance: E. Agility: E. Noble Phantasm. Unlimited Blade Works: A++. Class skills: Territory Creation: E. As a non-magus, you lack understanding of a magical workshop and can only barely create one with limited protective functions using your class-given skills. Item construction: E. As a non-magus, you have no knowledge of item construction and can only barely create a few magical items with limited abilities through your class-granted skills. Inherent skills: Eagle Eye C. From a high vantage point, you have the ability to survey an entire town and detect enemies. Magecraft C. Capable of using orthodox thaumaturgy, such as reinforcement and projection. When projecting sword-type weapons, it will rise to A+. Mind's Eye True B. Capable of calm analysis of battle conditions even when in danger and deduce an appropriate course of action after considering all possibilities to escape from a predicament. Without a doubt, this is the ability template brought by the fusion with heroic spirit Amiya's Saint Graph. But isn't this attribute value too low? Shirou's mouth twitched at the sight of a row of E's. How can he survive in the Holy Grail War with these attributes? This is too difficult. This is a dead end. The danger to his life prompts Shirou to get off the bed and pick up a towel to wipe his right hand, even though he knows it is a futile effort. He still hopes to be able to wipe off this curse, as it is too scary to have. He's afraid that halfway through, a servant will jump out of the bushes and shout Demacia while wielding a big sword and gank him. Big brother, what are you doing? Sakura picked up a cup of water and walked in, looking at Shirou with a confused expression. Shirou subconsciously covered his right hand and turned to the girl, muttering, "It's nothing." She placed a glass of water in front of him and said, "Here you go." Shirou gratefully picked up the glass and drank it all in one go. "Big brother, you should lie down. Your body is still weak," Sakura said with a worried expression. "Yeah, I know." Shirou hid his right hand behind his back and lay back on the bed, pointing to the drawer of the desk with his left hand. "Sakura, there are 2 black gloves in that drawer. Can you help me get one? If he can't wipe off the curse, then he can only cover it up. Otherwise, if other participants find him, he will definitely be killed in various ways. How can a 6-year-old kid with a full row of E attributes fight with those mythic killers who have experienced life and death? How will he fight? With his head. Therefore, he can only reduce the chance of his curse being exposed, and it is best if no one finds out. He needs to run away from Fuyuki City as soon as possible. Who knows, there may be a chance of survival. Big brother, why do you need to wear gloves in the room? And what is the red graffiti on the back of your right hand? It can't be washed off, and Auntie Chio was very angry before." Sakura passed the gloves to Shirou and reported at the same time. Shirou, who received the gloves, slowly lost his smile. "Sakura, have you seen the mark on the back of my right hand?" Shirou asked nervously. Sakura nodded, feeling somewhat strange about why Shirou's face was so tense. "Besides you and my mom, has anyone else seen the mark on the back of my hand?" Shirou's face was extremely tense, as this involves his life. "Yes," Sakura nodded without hesitation. "Who?" Shirou immediately asked, as this is a matter of life and death. Me, Auntie Chio, Uncle Narita, and your teacher, classmates and aunts and uncles from the surrounding neighbors' houses." Sakura thought and said, "Oh right. And a girl with brown hair, as well as her parents and relatives. A lot of people." Sakura tried to recall and answered Shirou's question to the best of her ability, but she did not notice that Shirou's face was getting paler and that a white ghost-like ball was almost coming out of his mouth. As soon as the thought of possessing the command spells entered his mind, Shirou imagines a group of mages with grotesque smiles knocking on his door and setting him up like a fool in every way imaginable. Oh my god, it's too much for him. Please, oh Lord, turn him back into a human. At this point, Shirou had no choice but to confront the harsh truth that had been forced upon him. As a young boy, Shirou had been selected for a special purpose, but now the secret of the curse he bears has been revealed, and he knows that greedy magicians will stop at nothing to end his life. As for whether anyone will spare his life considering that he is still just a child, perhaps if he wasn't a demi-servant, an ally of justice like Amiya Kuritsugu might let him go. But now that he is a demi-servant, and both a master and a servant to boot, there's no doubt that no one will spare him. As for counterattacking, with an E-rank ability, combat experience relying solely on inherited Saint Graph, and a normal Chinese person's brain and thought process, how can he fight those old foxes and mythological level murderers? Should he just bash their heads in? At this point, Shirou thought about it, and the only way he could think of to survive was, "Mom, let's leave Fuyuki City." When Fujimaru Chiyo returned from grocery shopping, Shirou made this suggestion with a grave expression. Leaving Fuyuki City is the safest way to avoid the Fourth Holy Grail War and ensure their survival. As long as they remain in the city, their lives will always be in danger. The only option is to leave. Even leaving the city may not be enough, as there is a risk that the skilled magician hitman with access to modern weapons might come after them. It might be best to leave Japan entirely and go abroad, perhaps to China where the border controls are strict and an infamous international hitman magician would likely be placed under surveillance upon entry. Fujimaru Chiyo objects, saying seriously, "Don't say such reckless things anymore. As abandoned children who have managed to build a home and a family in the city, they know how hard they have worked to get where they are and are not willing to give up their hard-won home so easily. The most pressing concern is that leaving Fuyuki City would mean giving up their jobs. In this difficult economic era, it is very challenging to find employment. Without a job, how would the family generate income? Would they have to rely on farming to make a living? This is a significant consideration that makes the decision to leave more difficult. I understand that you're feeling anxious and uncertain about the situation in Fuyuki City right now, but don't worry. Your father has already taken leave and we're going on a family vacation," Fujimaru Chiyo said, trying to reassure her child. "A family vacation?" Shirou asked. "Yes, the four of us will go on a family vacation." Fujimaru Chiyo smiled, her fierce demeanor softening slightly. By saying, "the four of us," it was clear that she had already begun to view Sakura as a member of the family. Shirou realized that going on a vacation would be a viable solution as long as they can avoid the Fourth Holy Grail War. When the time comes, they can leave Fuyuki City and never return. While it may be a somewhat childish approach, survival is the most important thing. "What's wrong with wanting to live? When will we leave?" Shirou asked, understanding that the timing of their vacation is crucial for avoiding the Fourth Holy Grail War. "Your father's leave has been approved, but he still needs to take care of some important business matters at the company. It should only take him a few weeks to finish everything up." Fujimaru Chiyo, unaware of Shirou's true motivations, assumed that he was excited about the trip and gave a proposed date. A few weeks, Shirou thought to himself. While he may not be a seasoned Fate fan, he still has a general knowledge of the series and is aware of the timeline. The Fourth Holy Grail War is said to have taken place in 1994, and the descriptions of the setting suggest that it took place in the winter. It is now September 1993. So there is at least a 2-month buffer before the war is expected to start, whether it begins at the beginning or the end of the year. Shirou let out a sigh of relief at the thought that he might be able to avoid the Fourth Holy Grail War, but when he caught a glimpse of Sakura from the corner of his eye, his resolve wavered once again. According to the Fate timeline, Sakura was passed on to the Matsu family for modification a year before the Holy Grail War. And looking at her now, although she had a sad look in her eyes, she still had the purity and vivacity of a child and didn't look like she had gone through any modification at all. So it looks like the Holy Grail War occurred at the end of 1994? Whether it starts at the beginning or the end of the year, please God, do what is right, and don't do anything unexpected. For the next few days, Shirou stayed holed up at home, refusing to go out no matter the weather. He knew that the command seals had been seen by many people, which increased the chances of exposure. Going out now would be like inviting an attack. While there is a chance of encountering participants in the war, the chances are relatively low, and home is still a relatively safe place. "Big brother, here you go," Sakura said as she returned Shirou's art textbook to him. Sakura has been staying with Shirou's family and has been mostly using his textbooks to learn new things. Shirou's family does not know if Sakura has received any previous education or where she may have studied before, and they are hesitant to bring up the topic of her wounds, so they have not asked. Sakura is also sensitive about this subject and has not mentioned it. However, the Fujimaras have decided to adopt Sakura and want to provide her with an education. Since classes have already begun, they have decided to allow Sakura to adjust at home for a period of time before enrolling her in school, given her current psychological state. This just goes to show that the most considerate people are always those who have experienced something themselves. "Here, this is an art picture book. Have a look," Shirou said as he took an art picture book out of his bag and handed it to Sakura. In the time that they have spent together, he has noticed that Sakura really enjoys these art picture books, and sometimes, when they are both at home with nothing to do, she will take out some paper and start drawing. "Thank you, brother," Sakura said with a sweet smile. Shirou felt that he had been healed. This feeling of having a younger sister at home is really good. Just that, when he thought about Sakura's family background and the difficulties that she would likely face in the future, Shirou's mood became a bit somber. He knew very well that their current relationship was temporary and that eventually, they would have to part ways. Sakura was a member of the Tosaka family and was destined to be retrieved by Tosaka Tokiomi and then passed on to the Matu family, where she would begin her own journey. Shirou had sympathy for Sakura's fate, but he was helpless. At the time, he was too busy with his own concerns to be able to focus on helping anyone else. Furthermore, even if he wanted to take care of her, he would not know where to find the power to do so. He was no longer a reader who sat in front of a computer or held a phone and watched fan fiction or novels, able to safely sit at a high-dimensional angle overlooking the world and criticize the actions of the characters. He was no longer qualified to say, the protagonist is really rubbish anymore. He was just a passerby but also an ordinary person living in a peaceful era. He had harbored the delusion of being a hero who could save the day. But in reality, he was an ordinary person protected by a society governed by law. What an ordinary person can do to be a hero and save the day, especially when faced with enemies like murderers from mythology, magicians who treat human life lightly, and old monsters who have lived for hundreds of years. However, it is strange that Sakura has been staying at home for almost 10 days and the Tosaka family has not come to the door yet. Given their resources, this is very unusual. It is possible that Tosaka Tokiomi is so focused on the Holy Grail War that he has neglected this matter. But that's okay too. If separation is the predetermined outcome, Shirou hopes that this time can be extended indefinitely. On the one hand, Shirou genuinely likes this well-behaved and sensible girl, but on the other hand, he does not want her to suffer such a terrible fate. However, it is time for them to part ways. Can he really stand by and watch as a girl suffers such a terrible misfortune and do nothing about it? Shirou does not know. He is an ordinary person with a conscience, kindness, malice, concerns, and selflessness. But he is also a selfish person. He does not know how he will react at that moment and does not want to think about these complex things. He has entrusted the answer to time, and perhaps when the time comes, it will tell him what to do. But for now, Shirou has to face another serious challenge.